Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Nix. A couple of interesting but horrifying financial figures coming out of the latest DIRCO audit report just had me somewhat flabbergasted. And for whatever insane reason, if you had to choose to go work at a government department, I highly recommend DIRCO because they really are living the life. So not only is the average salary for DIRCO employees sitting at just over 1 million rand, they also spent 42 million rand on catering and branding for the year, some of which was for G20, and travel costs came in at 305 million. So let's run through just some of these numbers. I'll even show you which international organizations DIRCO gave money to. That comes in at a whopping 792 million rand. Because the state of South Africa's internal affairs clearly doesn't need this money. I understand there are obligations, etc., etc. But let's go through this, and then you can let me know if this all was completely necessary or if there could have been some cost-cutting initiatives. I warn you, it's a lot of numbers. Make sure you get a cup of coffee and a pen and a piece of paper, because you're going to need all of that to try and keep up with how quickly DIRCO spends our money. Let's ramble, guys. Kicking off with DIRCO's budget, which sits at just over 7 billion rand. The thing is that 3.2 of that is for employee compensation. The total for fruitless, unauthorized, and irregular spending for the year comes in at 3.4 billion rand. The breakdown is fruitless, 36.4 million rand. Unauthorized, 1.2 billion rand. And that's not the worst one. Irregular, 2.1 billion rand, which brings us to the 3.4 billion rand money spent with no real audit tracking process in place. Viva ANC, I have to say. Let's talk about what made me go down the rabbit hole of finding DIRCO's audit report. Well, News24 reports, South Africa has been dispersing millions to its neighbours and allies, including 70 million in aid to South Sudan, 41 million in disaster relief to Zimbabwe. I wonder if that's for their crops, for the land grabs that happened a couple of years ago. Ha ha. A 140 million rand loan facility to Cuba. How does that even begin to make sense? The amount of loans Cyril has taken in just this year, I've said in multiple of my other videos as well, but now we take that money and turn it into the loan facility for Cuba. You know what? If the interest rate's higher, kudos to the ANC. It would be the first sign that they actually know how to do business. And then, of course, 50 million in assistance to war-torn Palestine. This goes under the financial year 25-26, which has nothing to do with the numbers I'm going to show you now. So let's take a look at what DIRCO did give international organizations the prior year. Well, the African Union received 329 million from us. India, Brazil, South Africa Trust Fund received 18.2 million. I'm just going to reel off the high numbers. United Nations Development Program, 18.7 million. I'm not seeing much development in our economy though, so wondering how that money is being used at the moment. We have the South African Development Community received 170 million rand. United Nations, and this is every year by the way, 205.5 million rand. Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, 12.7 million rand. Humanitarian aid, 23.2 million rand. In total, sent to international organizations comes to 792.2 million rand. And now just think of the Chris Hani Hospital, Baragwana Hospital, being completely destroyed, highlighted by Willem, link for that video in the description. So what could we as South Africans, what could we have done with 792 million rand? So these horrifying numbers don't stop there. When you look at their audit report, a couple of other horrifying things emerge. So now remember, their budget is 7 billion. They spend 3.2 of that on employees, which leaves them with 3.8 billion rand. But then you look at the items listed under goods and services. They're spending 275 million rand on computers and IT. Operating leases come at 953 million rand. And then on top of that, property payments at another 522 million rand. Travel then sits at 305 million rand. All of that, just those four numbers, come to a whopping 2 billion rand. And when you go back to that 3.8 that's left over from the budget after employees are paid, that leaves you with a meager 1.5 billion rand to then perform the rest of DIRCO's functions. Absolutely crazy, and I guess 100% proof that the ANC don't know how to run a business, or at least balance the books. I mean, their catering bill comes in at a mere 5 million rand, completely down from the prior year, which it was sitting at 17.8 million rand. But the thing is, if I look at catering and branding, in their supply chain management listings, which we will go through now, we come to a whopping 42.2 million rand. So I just feel like you recategorized your catering, DIRCO, because for sure you did a whole bunch of catering. And let me take you through all of that, guys. This is a listing in their audit report that talks about procurement by other means. I read that as procurement by not following due process and legislation. But that's just my interpretation of whatever the hell this is. As you can see, I've highlighted a couple of things. This is catering, groceries, events, branding for the G20, which comes in at a whopping 352 million, I think. So like I said, I'm not going to read out all the numbers. You can do that for yourself. But here's a couple of the big ones. Catering and sound systems, 65,000. Catering services during the 2024 inauguration, 1.7 million rand. Appointment of a service provider to provide accommodation for heads of states and DIRCO support staff during the 24 inauguration, 2.1 million rand. We have decor, catering, sound system, stage and lighting, which goes in at 281,000. Now, some of the branding, for no real event listed here, but it did cost us 230,000 rand. Meanwhile, a marquee, decor, stage, sound system, tables, chairs, VIP, mass toilets, podium, air conditioner, and hire of generators cost us 491,000. Here's something that increased my blood pressure somewhat. Conferencing facilities and all-inclusive services for annual Ubuntu Awards 2025, 7.1 million rand. Super happy to see where all my taxes are going. Branding at OR Tambo International Airport, still not specifically listed for G20 at 505,000. Then we have G20 airport advertising, 33.6 million rand. That is just catering and branding for 1 year for DIRCO, not following due financial process. And the chaos does not stop there, because we also have contract variations and expansions. Again, just looking at some of the events and catering that our DIRCO employees do love to do. So we have catering, securing the NASREC Expo Center, promotional material, car decals, etc. for the G20, and uniforms for support staff required during the G20. The total contract value, just for those items that you can see highlighted in yellow, 4 items, comes in at 106.8 million rand. Then, of course, because we all know the ANC can never get something done on time or within budget, there are always contract expansions. We got another 500,000 rand expansion, bringing the total in at 107 million rand for just those 4 items. Those numbers are just ridiculous. And to think a 3.5 billion rand bill for irregular, fruitless and unauthorized expenditure, though spending 275 million rand on computers, traveling the world for 305 million rand. Meanwhile, they're also all being paid, averaging 1 million rand. What a life, honestly, what a life. So to end off my ramble, our money is not benefiting us. This budget from DIRCO, 792 million rand, almost 1 billion rand, sent internationally. Meanwhile, we're basically a mafia state. We have the worst gender-based violence, youth unemployment, GDP growth, alles, everything, and its auntie's uncle's brother. I mean, you can bet on the ANC that they found it and they've ruined it. I have to always look at value add. What is the value add? And then again, Cyril rocks up on stage. They have their National General Council or something. They can't pay their employees at Luthuli House. And then they go and have a National General Council for Kile rocks up in, I think it was a 3.5 million rand car. How shamelessly bombastic do you have to be to even rock up? I could never. I would rather have my granddad drop me off in the corner so I could walk in than think it's okay to rock up in a 3.5 million rand car, but the employees haven't been paid. And then stand up on stage and say, oh, it was just a glitch. I also didn't get paid. Listen, 3.5 million rand car, dude. It doesn't matter. You have a 3.5 million rand car. These employees, for the 4th time this year, are suffering the consequences of your inept incompetence. I mean, absolutely shocking, the stuff that comes out of the ANC's mouth sometimes. You can see I'm riling myself up here. Anywho, no value add. Their approach is failing. They're falling. And we just need to start looking all in the same direction, understanding what the goal is, save South Africa, then we can deal with the rest. But remember, it's also our role to change the narrative and to educate others. These are the stories we need to be sharing with our domestic, with the teller. When somebody challenges you that the ANC is not corrupt, ask them about all of this. Check out some of my other videos. Where's all of that money going? 2.2 trillion rand is allowed to be offshored in profit out of South Africa to foreign-owned companies so that they don't have to A, pay the appropriate amount of tax, and B, reinvest it into our country. They're making a profit and then they Hambawena. Then it's Chila time. Profit made, Chila time. And these foreign companies own 40% of the JSE. You know, when you start just putting everything together like a big picture, which I will one day, I'm saving up for like this massive whiteboard. When you start putting the pieces together and you start looking at it from a system, it is rotten to the core, guys. Rotten. The entire tree, plus its roots, need to come out for this one. And you know, just highlighted, just a tip of the iceberg is the Madlanga Commission, because that is happening in every province, every department, and every state-owned company. I'll give a 5% grace. 95% of government institutions and state-owned companies are as bad as what you're hearing in the Madlanga Commission. The ANC have been in power for 30 years. Even if the worst of it started 15 years ago, that's 15 years. And think about what I've just told you for one financial year. And like I said, I'm going to need a Musa Groot whiteboard to even begin to start connecting the dots on how all of this, plus then the international community, aka the EU constantly giving us loans, because it all comes together. And I mean, many of you and I have discussed it in the comments, but there is a huge picture like coming to light here. The book that will be written about this. I digress. That was the end of my ramble. I probably went on for like another 5 minutes. You know what? I tell people, don't get me started. I will keep going. The amount of information in this head about the corruption is endless. Guys, I hope you have a fabulous day. I hope you found this video insightful. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Bloop. It's free. It supports my channel. And it really just gives me a pat on the back and says, you're doing an amazing job. And I say to that, thank you. Nikki and Paul, you are my number ones, of course, part of the Nick's Rambles Club. All of you are welcome to be part of that club. $14.99 a month. The link for that is in the description. But really, if I could ask for just one or two things that wouldn't cost you a cent, it's that you subscribe and like this video. Have a great day, guys. All of you must continue to be the most amazing human being you can be. And on that note, over and out.